because every single morning or whatever, like write a thread and then
Right.
turn that into other content, where I could just take that and be like, cool, write 5 different versions of this.
Exactly.
And then have 5 different TikTok
Yep.
videos.
Yeah, you can have it shrink big content and you can have it expand short content. So if you have the tweet thread already created, you can throw that into ChatGPT and say, make me 5 videos based on each section of this tweet. Or, you know, like 5 video ideas, and then you'll expand those out, like write a script for this. You can do this with all of your content. And then you can also move laterally, where you can be like, okay, write this piece of content, but make it directed at plumbers. You know, write this piece of content and make it directed at executives. So it can do that. It can morph. Sometimes depending on how far of a reach it is, it might be kind of wonky, but like the speed at which you can create those things expands dramatically. And now your role is more of a curator and editor than it is like a creator, even though you generated the initial creation. So you generated the initial idea just from whatever, morning pages, you read a book, you know, like that kind of stuff.
I'm just like multiplying myself.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by the bottom 20 to 30% of creation is you can either use that as a way to eliminate 30% of your workload, essentially, like your shit is just done very quickly, or you can use that 30% increase at the bottom to produce more. Like now, what would it look like if you produced 30% more for free? You know, and then stack that in terms of like raising the floor over time. That's kind of that's why I'm excited about it, but also why I'm trying to figure out really explicit use cases for each person, because that thing looks different for everyone. And it works most effectively when that person is already very efficient and knowledgeable. It doesn't work really well if you're building something from scratch for somebody that doesn't know anything, because you're not going to have the ability to edit effectively. You're going to have to research and look things up to see if the ChatGPT threw out bad info. And you aren't going to have the taste to know what's good and what's bad. So you're just going to accept whatever you get at face value, and the shit that you put out is going to be bad. And people are going to see that it's either generated by AI or just unhelpful. So I think you have to be an expert who's already efficient to use it most effectively.
I think so too. Cause I mean, I can almost tell, like, just by looking at the newsfeed, who's using like, I mean, it's so blatantly like obvious. And like, people are like, oh, I'm just gonna, like some of my students are like, oh, I'm doing an organic marketing sprint and I'm using ChatGPT to like come up with the content. And I'm just like, you are missing the entire point of like.
Exactly. Yeah. That's why, I'm going to be teaching that rapid copy method as a workshop pretty soon, which is one of the things I wanted to talk about. But I'm not going to use ChatGPT for that. Like, I've already got a way of teaching a person to get a first draft long form sales letter out really, really fast. I'm going to teach them that. And then at the very end, I'm going to be like, hey, by the way, ChatGPT, if you know what you're doing, or Jasper AI, which I believe is more effective for copy in general, takes this 4-hour process that I just taught you and turns it into 30 minutes. So whereas normally someone would take weeks or months to write a long form sales letter, I can teach them to do it in 4 hours with efficiency. And now that the robot is going to make it even faster for them. If they tried to use the robot first, it would take them even longer to get the copy out, because the problem that they're having with taking that long is a problem of lack of editing, lack of taste, like lack of execution, essentially.
That's interesting, because that's where I'm seeing like people, you know, wanting to use it to generate content, where you're saying to use it to spit out more pieces of good content.
Exactly. Yeah. I view it either as you're taking your existing quantity and quality of content and you are producing that in 10 times less time. So like your current level with way less effort and time involved, right? That's one direction to go. Or you take your current quality and you take your current quality and you expand the quantity as far as you can while maintaining the quality. Like you can't, this stays steady. You have to go in one direction or the other, in my opinion. And I guess there is a world where your quality can stay the same. It's taking you less time to also do higher quality or higher quantity. But I think that that's one of those like want to gain muscle, want to lose fat kind of things. You got, if you want to do it most efficiently, you pick one. If you want to do them at the same time, both will happen slower, but it's technically possible and a little harder. I don't know. That's kind of how I'm envisioning it.
So like I always recommend like my students do 4 to 5 ad angles, right? Test them a week.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what would be the workflow that you would recommend getting 4 to 5 new ad angles utilizing this technology? Like what would be what would be that workflow?
That's a really good question. It depends on each person individually, but if I had to answer that question generically.
So me, right? Like, so let's say like I write 4 to 5 new ad angles. How could I shortcut utilizing this tool?
Let me, rather than doing it abstract, let's do it for you, right?
Okay.
So what is your current process to come up with those ad angles?
Yep. So basically what I do is I sit down with a Google document and I'm thinking, okay, what are 5 things that my students or prospects are actively doing 5 minutes before they see this ad?
Okay, so I'm going to say, what are 5 things that my students or prospects are actively doing 5 minutes before they see this ad? Okay. And that's what you're thinking.
Yep. And so I'll take out a Google Doc and I'll just be like, well, they're watching a YouTube video trying to figure out, how to place their ad, but the video's not aligned with their specific goal that they're trying to do. So it's a big waste of time.
Okay. So they're watching a YouTube video trying to figure out how to place their ad, but the video is not aligned with what?
With their specific goal, right? Like they're trying to figure out how to do to place their ad for a webinar, but they're watching a video that's talking about, placing an ad for an ebook.
They're trying to learn to place an ad for a webinar, but they're watching a video about how to place an ad for an ebook. Cool. So, all right. Here's what I'm doing in Jasper, right? I'll go ahead and share my screen again just so you can kind of see what I'm doing. Now, this is Jasper. We could do this for ChatGPT too, right? So I just wrote down what you told me right here. Think of what are 5 things that my students or prospects are actively doing 5 minutes before they see this ad. Example, they're watching a YouTube video. Write me 5 content angles to that will help. Write down 5 content angles, video content angles that help me solve this problem for them, right? There you go. All done. Right?
Wow.
So what I just did was you kind of did the initial work, right? But all I did was literally copy what you said into this document. Think of a limited prompt that isn't maybe not even that great. There's no parameters in here other than 5 video content angles, right? And then execute. So how long did that take? We were recording it, so now all of a sudden your ideation for all of your content is done, right?
Yep.
But let's say, that focus on how coaches would do those things or something like that. I don't know. These are shitty. These are really shitty prompts because I'm going really fast and not really thinking hard about it. Here you go. You know? So not only did it give you 5 new angles, but it also wrote you a summary of what you should probably teach. Whether or not that's accurate is up to you as the expert, and whether or not there's additional elements that you would want to add to it is up to you. But now you're done. That was 3 minutes or 4 minutes or whatever, right?
Yeah. And now all I have to do is just go and edit and
load
them into my little prompter on my phone and go shoot them.
Right. So if you use a teleprompter for your copy, then yeah, you would have to pull that script, edit it, and throw it in there. For me, what I would do is, this is an outline. So I would just see the topic title. I would maybe tweak it based on what I want it to sound like from my voice or my copy. And then essentially what I'm doing is I'm going to break this down into what I would consider to be like outline like this, like little bullet points and stuff. And this is actually I'm taking longer, right? How coaches can leverage ads for maximum impact during a webinar, strategies for crafting captivating and attention-grabbing headlines and copy. I actually don't even like this. So how coaches can leverage ads for maximum impact during a webinar, getting more signups, more sales after the webinar ends, and more nurtured leads for the people who don't buy, right? Sweet, because I'm a copywriter. I know I want to do that. So then I'm going to look at the camera real quick and essentially just be like, hey, this is a video for how coaches can leverage ads for maximum impact during a webinar, getting more signups to the webinar, either before or right during the webinar itself, more sales after the webinar ends for people who didn't buy during the close, and more nurtured leads for the people who don't buy so that they may buy eventually in the future, a few months or even years down the line. The first thing that coaches need to use or can use for ads to do this is by writing captivating and attention-grabbing headlines and copy. So I'm going to go in and kind of just riff.
And then you'll probably show them the formula for doing that.
Yeah. And if I'm not showing this and I'm just face to camera, they don't know that I've got this in front of them. They think I'm just riffing, because I am. I'm just using this as a baseline. So for me, if I wanted to do 5-minute videos, I could be done in 45 minutes. Because I just record a Loom video, you know? And that's what I mean by creating that level of efficiency, essentially.
Oh, that's so good. I just baited you for that. I'm going to run this as a live video, right?